Most founders walk into their first investor meeting thinking the big question is valuation. But the uncomfortable reality is that some of the most expensive mistakes in startups happen after the valuation conversation is already over. Because the terms that actually change your future are usually buried in the details founders barely understand the first time they see them. That's why venture deals became required reading in Silicon Valley. It teaches you how investors think, how control shifts, and how founders accidentally give away leverage long before the company succeeds. And if you want the deeper breakdown, the full PDF and checklist are linked below. What we're covering here is the small set of terms that matter disproportionately more than everything else on the sheet. Economics versus control, liquidation preferences, board structure, founder vesting, and negotiation leverage. Because once you understand these 5 ideas, investor conversations stop feeling mysterious and start feeling predictable. And if this kind of practical breakdown is useful to you, subscribe and turn notifications on. We're going much deeper into how real startup systems actually work, beyond the surface level advice most founders hear online. Here's the framework that simplifies almost every term sheet. Every clause is either about economics or control. Economics decides who gets paid when the company exits. Control decides who gets to make decisions before that exit ever happens. And this is where many founders get trapped. They obsess over headline valuation because it feels visible and exciting, while quietly ignoring control terms that shape the company for years. WeWork is one of the clearest examples of this. Adam Neumann had enormous influence partly because of governance structure and voting control, until investor pressure reversed the balance completely. The lesson wasn't just about leadership. It was about how power inside a company is designed. And the economic term founders misunderstand most often is liquidation preference. A standard 1x non-participating preference is relatively clean. Investors either take their original investment back or convert into equity ownership. But participating preferred changes the math dramatically because investors can effectively get paid twice, first their preference, then their equity participation afterward. Now add a 2x multiple on top of that, and suddenly a decent acquisition can leave founders with surprisingly little money. This is why some startup exits that look successful publicly feel devastating privately. The dangerous part is that these terms often seem harmless during fundraising because everyone is focused on getting the deal done quickly. I'm curious whether you've seen founders misunderstand this before, because this is one of the quietest ways leverage disappears in venture-backed companies. What follows directly from economics is control, and that usually lives in the boardroom. A balanced board structure protects everyone. Typically 2 founders, 1 investor, and 1 independent member keeps incentives relatively stable early on. But when investors gain majority board control too early, founders can lose practical authority even while owning meaningful equity. Uber experienced years of tension driven partly by board dynamics and investor influence. Again, the lesson wasn't personality alone. Governance structures shape outcomes long before conflict becomes visible. Protective provisions matter here too. Certain investor veto rights can block acquisitions, fundraising decisions, or operational moves even when founders disagree. And this leads into a topic many founders emotionally resist at first: vesting. 4-year vesting with a 1-year cliff became standard for a reason. It protects the company if someone leaves early and ensures ownership reflects long-term contribution. The important nuance is acceleration protection. Double trigger acceleration helps founders avoid being removed immediately after an acquisition without compensation protection. Without clear vesting rules, cap tables become political very fast. Resentment builds quietly when former contributors still own large percentages while active operators carry the workload. And this is where negotiation strategy becomes more important than negotiation intensity. Smart founders don't fight every term equally. They focus heavily on liquidation preferences, board composition, and vesting structure because those terms compound over time. Meanwhile, small valuation differences often matter far less than founders think. Peter Thiel once said that the best entrepreneurs create leverage before the negotiation starts, and in venture capital, multiple term sheets are leverage. Competition changes investor behavior immediately. The cleanest term sheet is usually more valuable than the highest headline number. So the one thing to remember is this: read the deal before you desperately need the money, because the most dangerous term sheet isn't the aggressive one, it's the one you don't fully understand while signing it. Subscribe if you want more breakdowns like this, and if you want the deeper framework, examples, and checklists behind everything we covered, the full PDF is linked below.